Whoa, you look just like me but older. Luis's voice rang clear through the marble hallway, his small hand tugging on the sleeve of $1,000 suit. Rodrigo Castro, my former one-night stand, my current business rival, the man I'd spent 7 years avoiding, froze mid-step, his silver eyes dropping to meet an identical pair staring up at him with innocent wonder. I watched from the archway as recognition flickered across that famously unreadable face, and I knew with bone-deep certainty that every secret I'd buried in Monaco was about to detonate in the middle of the most important night of my career. Hey, welcome to Imagine BL Story. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really encourages my work and helps me bring you more stories. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. The Global Innovations event was where fortunes changed hands over champagne and canapes. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across polished marble, and every person wore their ambition like expensive cologne. I stood at the edge of it all, champagne glass sweating in my palm, watching Rodrigo Castro work the room like he owned every molecule of oxygen in it. He moved through the crowd with effortless authority that made senators lean in and board members laugh at jokes that probably weren't funny. My company, Haven Tech Solutions, was competing against Castro Industries for a government contract that could change everything. Tonight, I was presenting my cybersecurity platform to procurement officials who could make or break my future. The presentation was in an hour. I should have been reviewing my notes. Instead, I couldn't stop watching him. 7 years since Monaco. 7 years since I'd convinced myself that one night meant nothing to him. I'd been 23, and Omega trying to prove himself in a world of Alpha CEOs. Rodrigo had been the untouchable billionaire who'd looked at me like I mattered. Until dawn came and he called it a mistake. The memory still had teeth. The way he'd rolled out of bed, already reaching for his phone. This was a mistake. We should both forget this happened. I'd left before he could see me cry. A month later, when the pregnancy test came back positive, I'd known with absolute certainty that Rodrigo Castro had no room in his world for complications. For an Omega. For a child. So I'd built my life around keeping Luis safe. Around making sure my son never felt like a mistake. Papa, can I go look at the ice sculptures? The small hand tugging my sleeve yanked me back to the present. I looked down into Luis's face, my sunshine, my entire world, and my heart did what it always did when he looked at me with those devastating silver eyes. I knelt down, straightening his little bow tie. Stay close tonight, meu amor. Promise me. He nodded, but there was that mischievous glint I knew too well. The same glint I'd seen in photographs of young Rodrigo Castro. Enzo. Julia's voice at my elbow made me straighten. My best friend and VP materialized beside me. You're staring at him again. I tore my gaze from Rodrigo. I'm strategizing. You're spiraling. He doesn't recognize you. It's been 7 years. You've changed. Just get through tonight, nail the presentation, and we can leave. She was right. I had changed. The scared 23-year-old who'd fled Monaco had grown into someone harder, sharper. I'd earned every gray hair building something from nothing while raising a child alone. But even as Julia spoke, I saw Rodrigo's gaze sweep the room and land on me. For one heartbeat, time stopped. Our eyes locked across the crowded ballroom, and I felt it. That same electric pull from that night. Does he remember? Then his expression shifted to polite interest, and he turned to shake hands with a senator, dismissing me as just another face in the crowd. Good. Better that way. I turned to ask Luis if he wanted more juice. Luis, do you want? The space beside me was empty. My heart stopped. I scanned the crowd, panic rising. Where is he? There, through the sea of people, I caught a glimpse of a small figure in a bow tie slipping through the archway toward the quieter exhibition hall. No, I breathed. Not there. I pushed through the crowd, muttering apologies. Julia called after me. I didn't stop. By the time I reached the hallway, I heard it, Luis's bright, fearless voice. Whoa, you look just like me but older. Rodrigo had been looking at his phone, but now he was completely still. He'd crouched to Luis's level, staring at my son with an expression I'd never seen on his face. Something between wonder and dawning realization. Luis grinned up at him, oblivious. Are you my papa's friend? Do you know my papa? His name is Enzo. I watched it happen in slow motion. Rodrigo's gaze traveled from Luis's eyes, those unmistakable silver eyes, to his nose, to the dimple in his left cheek, to the way he tilted his head when curious. It was like watching someone solve an equation. And Rodrigo Castro was very good at math. His hand, reaching out to steady Luis, trembled slightly. Then his eyes lifted and found mine. For 7 years, I'd imagined this moment. I'd rehearsed speeches, prepared arguments, built walls around my heart high enough to withstand nuclear fallout. But nothing prepared me for the look on Rodrigo's face. Shock gave way to something raw and unguarded, betrayal and wonder and fury all at once. His lips formed my name, not a question, a recognition. Enzo. Luis turned, following Rodrigo's gaze, and his face lit up. Papa, look, I found your friend. He looks just like me. Isn't that cool? My heart hammered against my ribs. Rodrigo stood slowly, unfolding to his full height, and even from 20 feet away I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw worked like he was physically restraining himself. And I knew, standing there with my son between us and 7 years of secrets crumbling, that everything was about to change. Everything. Luis, come here. Now. My voice came out sharper than intended, cutting through the marble hallway. Luis's smile faltered, confusion clouding those silver eyes as he looked between me and Rodrigo. But Papa, I was just... Now, Luis. I closed the distance, reaching for my son's hand, but Rodrigo rose to his full height, blocking my path without moving. His presence filled the space between us, solid and immovable. Enzo Martins. He said my name like he was tasting it after 7 years of silence. I didn't realize you had a son. The emphasis on that last word was subtle, but I heard the question underneath. The accusation wrapped in civility. Papa, you do know him. Luis looked delighted, bouncing on his toes. Does he work with you? God, my son was too smart, too observant. Rodrigo's gaze hadn't left my face, and I could see him calculating, counting backward through months and years, remembering Monaco with crystal clarity. He's just someone from work, sunshine. The lie tasted like ash. Come on. Julia is looking for us. I tried to move around Rodrigo, but his hand caught my elbow. Just for a second, the lightest pressure, sending electricity shooting up my arm. We need to talk, he said quietly. His scent hit me then. Sandalwood and something crisp, like winter air. The same scent that had clung to hotel sheets that night, haunting my dreams for 7 years. My body remembered even when I wished it wouldn't. No, I managed, pulling free. We really don't. How old are you? Luis asked suddenly, studying Rodrigo with scientific intensity. Rodrigo's attention shifted to my son, our son, and something in his expression softened. The CEO mask cracked slightly. 34. My papa is 30. That means you're older, but not like grandpa old. Luis nodded sagely. Are you strong? Can you do a handstand? Despite the panic clawing at my chest, I saw Rodrigo's mouth twitch, almost a smile. He crouched down again, bringing himself back to Luis's level, and this time I saw the wonder in his face, barely concealed. I've never tried a handstand, he admitted. Never. Luis was scandalized. Everyone should know how. Papa can do one. He teaches me lots of stuff. I'm sure he does. Rodrigo's voice was softer now, almost gentle, and when he looked up at me there was something vulnerable in those silver eyes. You're a good papa? It was a question, an olive branch, and a knife all at once. The best papa, Luis declared before I could answer. He makes me breakfast every day and reads me stories and helps with homework and takes me to the park even when he's tired and... There you are. Julia's voice cut through Luis's enthusiasm. She appeared at the end of the hallway, reading the situation with one sharp glance. Enzo, the presentation starts in 10 minutes. We need to prep. She looked at Rodrigo, recognition flickering. Mr. Castro, congratulations on your quarterly earnings. Rodrigo stood, his CEO mask sliding back into place. Perfect. Unreadable. Ms. Santos, always a pleasure. But his eyes stayed on me, burning with questions I wasn't ready to answer. 10 minutes, Rodrigo said quietly. Then we talk. Or I follow you into that boardroom and we have this conversation in front of everyone. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Luis tugged my hand. Papa, why does everyone look so serious? I looked down at my son, this beautiful boy who deserved better than a father who'd been running for 7 years. Then at Rodrigo, who was watching Luis like he was trying to memorize every detail. After the presentation, I heard myself say. Rodrigo nodded once. Sharp. As I led Luis back toward the ballroom, Julia fell into step beside us. Are you insane? She whispered. Probably. Luis skipped between us, pointing out ice sculptures. Look, Papa. That one looks like a dragon. His voice was bright, unburdened. He had no idea the ground beneath our feet had just shifted. But I could feel Rodrigo's stare burning into my back, could feel 7 years of secrets pressing down on my shoulders. The ballroom swallowed us back into its glittering chaos. Julia squeezed my arm once, silent support, then went to check on the presentation setup. I found my seat, Luis beside me, coloring on the program with a pen Julia had given him. Normal. Everything needed to look normal. Then they called my name. I stood at the podium, my presentation glowing on the screen behind me, government officials and board members watching with polite expectation. I was supposed to be explaining my company's revolutionary data security system, the algorithms I'd spent 3 years perfecting. Instead, all I could see was Rodrigo sitting in the back row, his silver eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my hands shake. He didn't blink, didn't look away. I clicked to the next slide, forced words through my tight throat, and made my voice sound confident. 45 minutes until my world ended. Better make them count. After my presentation, the applause was polite but enthusiastic. I could tell by the nods from the procurement committee that I'd nailed it. Under any other circumstances, I'd be celebrating. Instead, I was watching Rodrigo stand from his seat, his silver eyes locked on me like a predator tracking prey. Julia gripped my arm as we left the stage. You don't have to talk to him tonight. I know. Enzo. I said I know. I pulled away, scanning for Luis. Maria had him in the lounge, safe. Take Luis home with you, please. I'll pick him up in the morning. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to. Rodrigo was waiting by the exit, arms crossed, blocking my path. We need to talk now. No, we really don't. I tried to move past him, but he stepped into my path, not touching me, but close enough that his scent wrapped around me like a cage. Enzo. Mr. Castro. I made my voice cold, professional. Congratulations on your quarterly earnings. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a son to get home to. His jaw tightened. That's what we need to discuss. There's nothing to discuss. Good night, Mr. Castro. I stepped around him, and this time he let me go. But I felt his stare burning into my back all the way to the elevator. I didn't sleep that night. Luis was safe at Julia's house, and I sat in my home office staring at my phone as missed calls piled up. 3, 7, 12, 17. All from Rodrigo. His messages started professional and devolved into something rawer. We need to talk. I know you're avoiding me. Enzo, please. Just give me 5 minutes. Please. That last one, the please, nearly broke me. I turned my phone face down and poured another drink I didn't want. Morning came too fast. I showed up at my office running on coffee and spite. Julia met me at my office door, her face pale. He's here. My stomach dropped. What? In the lobby. He won't leave. I told security to escort him out. But what? She took a breath. He bought the building, Enzo. As of this morning. He owns the entire property. He's technically your landlord now. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then fury, white-hot and overwhelming, flooded through me. That manipulative son of a... I descended to the lobby, each step fueled by rage. Rodrigo stood by the reception, immaculate in navy. But there was something wild in his eyes. Something uncontrolled. Our employees were staring, whispering. That's illegal intimidation. I hissed when I reached him. Is he mine? His voice was low, but it carried. I grabbed his arm and dragged him into the nearest conference room. The door slammed behind us. You had no right. You can't just... You don't get to buy my building and demand answers like you own me. How old is he? Straight to the point. No games. I leaned against the door because my legs suddenly didn't want to support me. 6. He turned 6 in April. I watched the calculation happen. Rodrigo's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. 6 years. His voice was carefully controlled, but I heard the fury underneath. You've kept my son from me for 6 years. He's not. Don't. The word cracked like a whip. Don't you dare tell me he's not mine. I saw him, Enzo. I looked into his face and saw myself staring back. Those eyes. That face. He's mine. I saw the genuine pain bleeding through his armor, the way his shoulders curved inward like he was protecting something vital. And I thought of Luis asking about his other papa. The way his face had lit up when Rodrigo answered his questions. Yes, I finally answered. The word felt like surrender, like defeat, like the beginning of something I couldn't take back. He's yours. Luis is your son. For a moment, Rodrigo just stared at me. Then something shifted in his expression. Something cold and hard that made my stomach drop. He straightened, smoothed down his shirt, and the CEO mask slammed back into place. I see. 2 words. That's all he said. 2 words in that Arctic tone that made me feel like I was 23 again, watching him button his shirt and pretend I didn't exist. He turned and walked to the door. That's it. My voice came out small, broken. That's all you have to say? He paused, hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. I need a minute to think. Then he was gone. The door closing with a quiet click that sounded like finality. I sat there staring at the space where he'd been, and felt something crack in my chest. Of course, this was how it would go. He got his answer, his confirmation, and now he was walking away. Just like Monaco. Just like I'd always known he would. 7 years and nothing had changed. I made it back to my office on autopilot, brushed past Julia's concerned questions, and locked myself inside. My hands shook as I pulled up Maria's information. Luis was still at their place. I needed to hear my son's voice, needed to remember why I'd made the choices I'd made. But before I could call, angry tears blurred my vision. I'd been so stupid to hope, even for a second, that Rodrigo Castro might be different, that he might actually want to be a father. I slammed my fist on the desk, welcoming the sharp pain, better than the ache in my chest. 2 hours crawled by. I tried to work, failed, and tried again. Julia knocked twice, and I sent her away both times. Then my office door opened without warning. Rodrigo stood there, and he looked wrecked. His hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. His tie hung loosened and askew, and his eyes were red-rimmed, wild with barely contained fury. You have no right. His voice was low but shaking. Absolutely no right to take my son away from me or deny me his existence. You called me a mistake. The words exploded out before I could stop them. Years of buried hurt detonating all at once. That morning after, you couldn't get away from me fast enough. You looked at me like I was something you'd scraped off your shoe. What was I supposed to do? Show up at your office 3 weeks later with a positive pregnancy test? You would have thought I was trying to trap you. You would have thrown money at me and told me to disappear. You don't know that, don't I? I laughed, broken. Rodrigo Castro, the alpha who built an empire on ruthless efficiency, famous for cutting out anyone who might complicate his perfect world. You made it very clear that night meant nothing. I was afraid. The admission stopped me cold. Rodrigo ran a hand through his hair, destroying what was left of its perfect styling. I woke up next to you and I felt things I'd spent my entire life learning not to feel. You were brilliant and beautiful, and you made me laugh, actually laugh, for the first time in years. And it terrified me. So you pushed me away. I'm an alpha raised to believe emotion is weakness. My father. He stopped, jaw working like the words were physically painful. It doesn't matter. I pushed you away because I didn't know how to do anything else. And when I tried to find you later, you'd vanished. My breath caught. You looked for me? For months. I had my people search everywhere. You'd quit your job, left no forwarding address, no social media, nothing. I thought. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I thought you'd found someone better than a bastard alpha without emotions. I was pregnant and terrified. I whispered back. The anger drained out, leaving only exhaustion. I was barely making rent, so I moved to the outskirts, stayed with my aunt, had Luis in a clinic where they didn't ask too many questions. I built my life around keeping him safe. He moved toward me, hands shaking. Does he know about me? I told him his other father was far away, somewhere he couldn't reach. You told my son I was dead? The pain in his voice was raw, unguarded. I told him you were among the stars. What was I supposed to say? Your father is the Alpha CEO who wanted nothing to do with us. Rodrigo stopped inches from me. This close, his scent was overwhelming, sandalwood and winter and desperation. Does he have a good life? Is he happy? The question caught me completely off guard. Not can I see him? Or I want custody. Just, is he happy? Yes. I managed, voice breaking. He's brilliant and funny and kind. He loves dinosaurs and space and building things. He asks a million questions and gives the best hugs in the world. He's everything. I want to know him. His voice cracked, and I watched the careful control finally shatter. I've lost 6 years. Please don't make me lose any more. I'm not asking to take him from you. I'm asking for a chance to be his father. To be something. I looked at this Alpha, this powerful, terrifying man who'd conquered the business world but couldn't hide the longing on his face, the desperation, the grief for years he'd never get back. Dinner, I heard myself say. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock, my apartment. Come meet your son properly. Rodrigo's eyes closed briefly, like he'd been given something precious and fragile that he was afraid to break. Thank you. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. Enzo, I'm sorry. For Monaco. For making you feel like you didn't matter. You did. You've haunted me for 7 years. Then he was gone, and I was alone with the echo of his confession hanging in the air. I made it to my desk chair before my legs gave out. Slid down until I was sitting on the floor, back against the wood, and let myself cry. For the boy I was in Monaco who believed one night could change everything. For the years lost we could never get back. For the terrifying hope blooming in my chest that maybe, just maybe, we could build something from these broken pieces. The next day I'd cleaned the apartment 3 times. Luis watched me from the couch with barely concealed amusement. His homework forgotten. Papa, why are you being so weird? I'm not being weird. You reorganized the books by color. You never do that. He gestured at the bookshelf where I'd arranged everything by rainbow order. And you've swept the kitchen floor twice. I counted. I just want things to look nice. Are we expecting a guest? His eyes lit up with that knowing look far too perceptive for a 6-year-old. Is someone important coming over? I abandoned the kitchen towel I'd been wringing and sat down next to him. He immediately curled into my side. Luis, we need to talk about tonight. Okay. He tilted his head up at me, silver eyes curious and trusting. God, this was hard. Remember the man from the event? Rodrigo. The one who looks like me. His face lit up. Is he coming over? Can we show him my telescope? And my dinosaur collection? And, meu amor, yes, he's coming over. But first I need to tell you something important. I took a breath, trying to find words that wouldn't break either of our hearts. Remember how you ask about your other papa sometimes? The one I told you was far away. Luis nodded, suddenly serious in that way children get when they sense something big is happening. He's not far away anymore. Rodrigo is your other father, Luis. Your biological father. For a long moment, Luis just stared at me. Then, the man from the event is my papa? Yes. Why didn't he come before? The question stabbed straight through my heart. Did he not want me? No. No, sunshine, that's not. I pulled him closer. He didn't know about you. I didn't tell him. And that was wrong of me. I was scared. And I thought I was protecting you. But I should have given you both the chance to know each other. Luis processed this with careful consideration. Does he want to know me now? Very much. Will he stay? Or is he going away again? The fear in his voice nearly undid me. I think he wants to stay. If we let him. Luis thought about this, his small face serious. Then, okay, can we have pasta for dinner? It's my favorite. And I want him to know I like pasta. Just like that. As if the world hadn't just tilted on its axis. The doorbell rang at exactly 6 o'clock. Rodrigo stood there with an armful of gifts, a huge telescope, books about space and dinosaurs, a stuffed wolf, a model rocket kit. His expression was nervous in a way I'd never seen. Uncertain. Almost afraid. I didn't know what he liked. So I brought options. Papa, is that him? Luis peeked around my legs, suddenly shy. Rodrigo immediately crouched down, setting the gifts aside, bringing himself to Luis's eye level. Hi, Luis. I'm Rodrigo. I'm your other papa. If that's okay with you. Luis studied him with boardroom intensity. Then, do you like dinosaurs? I don't know much about them, but I'd like to learn. Do you like space? Yes, very much. Good. Luis nodded, satisfied. You can come in. Cooking together was awkward at first, but Luis took charge with the confidence of a tiny general, showing Rodrigo where everything was, explaining how Papa makes the sauce from scratch. Over dinner, Luis peppered Rodrigo with questions about his favorite color, Mars, and whether he'd live there. Rodrigo's eyes found mine. Only if you and your papa were there too. After dinner, Luis insisted Rodrigo try a handstand. Watching billionaire CEO Rodrigo Castro attempt one in my living room while my son giggled was surreal. He crashed into the couch spectacularly. Luis dissolved into laughter. And then Rodrigo laughed too, really laughed, and I saw the man from Monaco again. Luis climbed onto Rodrigo's back as he lay recovering. You're not very good at handstands, but that's okay. I'll teach you. When Luis started yawning, we read to him together, on either side of his bed, reading about a boy who flies to the moon. Can you come back tomorrow? Luis asked sleepily. If your papa says it's okay. Rodrigo responded carefully. Papa, is it okay? Yes, meu amor. He can come back. Luis smiled, grabbed both our hands. Good. Now I have two papas. After Luis slept, we sat in the living room with coffee. He's incredible, Rodrigo finally said. You've done an amazing job. He has your determination, your intensity when he focuses on something. He has your kindness, your smile. We both looked away, the moment too tender. I'm sorry, Rodrigo said quietly. There was no way I would have turned down my own child. And for what it's worth, I am sorry for making you feel you had to. I'm sorry too, for running, for not giving you a chance. At the door, he hesitated. His hand came up, traced my jaw the way it did in Monaco. Thank you for letting me in. Couldn't breathe. Rodrigo, I never forgot you, Enzo. Not for one single day. He left before I could respond, and I stood in the doorway, heart racing, wondering. What if we could be a family? 3 months passed. Rodrigo became woven into the fabric of our lives so seamlessly I sometimes forgot there was ever a time without him. Dinner 3 nights a week, never missing once. Luis's soccer games, homework help, patient and gentle in ways that made my chest ache. Then we won the contract, the biggest deal in our company's history. Rodrigo called immediately, genuinely congratulating me despite losing to us. That night, he showed up with champagne and a cake that said, "Congratulations, Papa," in Luis's messy handwriting. But 2 weeks later, we had our first fight. Rodrigo mentioned, casually over dinner, that he'd enrolled Luis in an elite private school. You did what? My voice went cold. Luis looked between us, confused. Papa, it's one of the best schools in the country, Rodrigo continued. He'll have opportunities. He's happy where he is. Enzo, be reasonable. Don't tell me to be reasonable about my son. Luis escaped to his room as our voices rose. I can give him advantages. Resources. Why wouldn't you want that for him? Because he doesn't need advantages. He needs parents who don't use him as a proxy for their own issues. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? You're trying to give him everything you never had, Rodrigo. But that's not what he needs. The silence that followed was awful. Then Rodrigo sank onto the couch, head in his hands. You're right. My childhood I was sent to the best schools, had every advantage, and I was completely alone. I just don't want Luis to feel that way. I sat beside him, not quite touching. He won't, because he has us, both of us. And we're not your father. I don't know how to do this, he admitted, lost. Relationships, family. I only know how to build empires and close deals. Then learn a new language, I said softly. Luis doesn't need expensive schools. He needs you at his soccer games, reading him bedtime stories, teaching him that it's okay to fail at handstands. A small voice from the hallway. Are you fighting about me? Because if you're going to split up before you even got together, that's really dumb. We both turned. Luis stood there in dinosaur pajamas, eyes worried. Pedro's papas fight sometimes, but they always make up, because they love each other. And you love each other, right? Rodrigo and I stared at each other. Do we? I can tell, Luis continued. Papa Enzo looks at you the way he looks at his favorite coffee. And Rodrigo, you smile different when Papa's around. After we tucked Luis back into bed, we returned to the living room. He's too observant, I muttered. Rodrigo laughed softly. He's right though. My heart stopped. About what? About me being happy when you're around. Enzo, these past 3 months have been the best of my life. Coming here, being with Luis, being with you. It feels like coming home to something I never knew I'd lost. I'm terrified, I whispered, of this, of us, of wanting something and having it taken away again. I'm terrified too. What if I'm not good enough? What if I mess this up? I pressed my fingers to his lips. What if you don't? What if we try, and it works? We were too close again. His hand came up, cupped my face with tenderness that made my throat tight. I loved you in Monaco. I've loved you through 7 years of not knowing where you were. I love watching you be a father. I kissed him before he could finish. It was nothing like that night. That had been desperate and alcohol-blurred. This was clear-eyed and terrifying. His hands were gentle on my waist, asking permission. Mine fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. When we finally broke apart, we were both shaking. Stay? I whispered against his lips. Not just tonight. Stay. Are you sure? No. I'm absolutely terrified. But I'm tired of running. Stay, Rodrigo. Be Luis's father. Be. Couldn't say it yet, but he understood. Okay. He breathed. Okay. And he did. I woke up to find Rodrigo still there. Asleep on my couch because I wasn't ready for more. Luis was curled against him, and they were both snoring softly, faces peaceful in the early morning light. My phone had 17 texts from Julia ending with, "If you murdered each other, I'm claiming Luis." I snapped a photo of them sleeping, my son and his father finally together, and sent it to her. Her response was immediate. Finally, I'll plan the wedding. Too fast. Too much. But looking at them, I let myself imagine it. Family. Future. Forever. And for the first time in 7 years, the fear didn't win. 6 months later, life had reshaped itself around 3 instead of 2. Rodrigo had a drawer at our apartment now. Then a closet. Then half the bathroom counter was covered with his expensive products. He still had his penthouse downtown, but he spent most nights here, on the couch that was terrible for his back but put him close to us. Luis had stopped asking when Rodrigo was leaving and started asking when we were all moving in together properly. The business press had noticed. Rival CEOs spotted at elementary school soccer game, read one headline, with a photo of Rodrigo's hand resting casually on my knee. Julia found it hilarious. "You're a power couple now. Own it." But I wasn't ready to own anything publicly yet. Rodrigo respected that, though I caught him looking at us sometimes with an expression that said he wanted to shout our existence from rooftops. Luis's school play was a disaster in the best way. He was a tree, specifically, an oak tree threatened by deforestation. He had exactly 3 lines and delivered them while standing perfectly still, taking his role very seriously. Rodrigo and I sat in the audience on tiny chairs, our knees practically touching our chins. When Luis spotted us from the stage, his face split into a grin so wide he nearly forgot his second line. Rodrigo's hand found mine in the darkness. Not tentative anymore, but certain. "I love him so much it's terrifying," Rodrigo whispered. "I know. Welcome to parenthood." His thumb stroked across my knuckles. "I love you too," in case that wasn't clear. My heart did something complicated. It's getting clearer. After the play, Luis chattered nonstop about his performance. We walked to the car, Luis between us, holding both our hands and swinging. That night, after Luis was asleep, we sat on the balcony. City lights spread below us like scattered stars. "I want to make this official," Rodrigo said quietly. I want to be listed as Luis's father. Legal papers, co-parenting agreement, everything." My chest tightened. "That's a big step." "I know, but I'm not going anywhere, Enzo. I want Luis to know that. I want you to know that. What if it doesn't work? What if we fight and break up and Luis has to deal with? Then we figure it out. Like adults. Like parents. But I don't think we will. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Move in with me." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Rodrigo stared. "What? Your penthouse is too big for 1 person. This apartment is big enough for 3. We're together every day anyway. Luis asks when you're coming home even when you've only been gone for work. Just move in. Officially. Are you sure?" "No. I'm terrified. But I'm doing it anyway." He kissed me instead of answering. Deep and sweet and tasting like promise. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "Yes. God, yes. I'll start packing tomorrow." The next morning at breakfast, we sat Luis down. "Meu amor, how would you feel if Rodrigo moved in with us? Permanently?" Luis looked up from his cereal. "Like, all his stuff?" "All my stuff," Rodrigo confirmed. Luis considered this with judicial gravity. "Does this mean I can't jump on your bed anymore?" "You're not supposed to jump on beds," I reminded him. "But you let me." "That was when it was just our bed being destroyed." Luis nodded, satisfied. "Does this mean you're together? Like Pedro's papas?" Rodrigo and I exchanged glances. "Yes," I said. "Is that okay?" Obviously, I've been waiting forever. Luis rolled his eyes like we were the slowest people on earth. Are you going to get married? Eventually, Rodrigo answered before I could panic. If your papa will have me. He will, Luis said with absolute confidence. He looks at you like you're his favorite person. After me, I'm still his most favorite. 3 years later, I stood in the doorway of our house. Not my apartment, not his penthouse, but ours. Watching Rodrigo attempt to teach Luis and our daughter, Sophia, how to make pancakes. There was flour everywhere. Sophia, age 2, had it in her hair, on her face, probably in places we wouldn't discover until bath time. Luis, now 9, was trying to explain the proper technique while Rodrigo ignored him completely. Papa, Luis called. Come help. Dad's doing it wrong again. I am not. You are. The heat's too high. I walked into the kitchen, pressed a kiss to Rodrigo's flour-dusted cheek, scooped Sophia into my arms. She giggled and immediately smeared pancake batter on my shirt. Dada, she chirped, pointing at Rodrigo. Dada mess. Rodrigo caught my eye and grinned. That rare, genuine smile that still made my heart skip. 10 years ago, I'd stood in Monaco believing I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Now I knew the truth, it wasn't a mistake. It was the first step toward this. Flour-covered mornings, children's laughter, a partner who looked at me like I hung the stars. Papa, the pancakes are burning. Luis's voice broke through my reverie. Rodrigo swore, mildly because little ears, and rushed to flip them. Sophia clapped. Luis rolled his eyes with long-suffering expression. And I stood there, holding our daughter, watching our son and the Alpha I loved create breakfast chaos together, and thought, we made it. Against all odds, through fear and secrets and 7 years of distance, we built this. A family that started with a child's innocent observation. You look just like me but older, and grew into something neither of us knew we needed. Something neither of us would ever take for granted again. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell us your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time, keep daydreaming in BL.